Hello, Mr. Holt's class. Today we're going to learn how to tell time on an analog clock. As always, we're going to get started with vocabulary. An analog clock is a clock that represents time by the position of hands using a dial. We have analog clocks in our classroom, and those have the hour hand and the minute hand, and it rotates around to help us tell the time. Analog clocks have an hour hand. This is the small hand or the line on a clock that tells you what hour it is. Analog clocks also have a minute hand. It is the large hand or line on a clock that tells you what minute it is. So our small hand tells the hour and our large hand tells the minute. All right, let's move on. Step 1 when trying to tell our time. Okay. I've included our anchor chart that we had in the classroom for you to refer back to. Step 1 is to find the small hand, look at the last number it passed, and whatever number it just passed, that will be your hour. Now here's our tip. It might be helpful to write down once you find it instead of trying to remember. Trying to remember the hour hand could cause you problems in that you forget, okay, or write down the wrong number. So please, once you find the hour, write it down. So over here in step 1, we notice our small hand is pointing in between the numbers 2 and 3. What number did the small hand pass? Well, if we start at 12 and we go this way, we see that the small hand just passed the number 2. It has not passed the number 3 yet. So we go back to 2, and that is our answer for the hour. So our hour is 2 o'clock, and we would write that down. We just write the number 2. Then we go over to the minute. We find the large minute hand and look at the last number it passed. And then from there are 2 ways that we can find the minute. We can take whatever number it just passed and then count by 5 starting at the number 1 on the clock, where 1 equals 5, 2 equals 10, 3 equals 15, and so on. Or we can take whatever number it just passed and then multiply that number by 5. So if we go over here, we first identify the minute hand as this long one. Again, looking at what number it passed, okay, if we go around our circle, it passed the number 4, but did it pass the number 5? Not yet. So we go back to the number 4. Okay, so we know that the minute hand passed the number 4, so that's going to be our important number. From there, we can either start at the number 1 and count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20. Or we can multiply the number 4 by 5. 4 times 5 would be 20. Okay, so once we've identified that this number right here, this 4, actually means 20 in time, we just count by 1s on the single tick marks. So we see these little tiny tick marks, and this line is pointing to this tick mark right here. So if number 4 equals 20, 1 little tick mark is 21, 2 tick marks is 22, and 3 tick marks is 23. And that's what the big hand, the minute hand, is pointing to, the number 23. And so then we would write that down as our minutes. So our time would be 2:23. All right, let's practice. So again on here, I have our 2 steps and I have our anchor chart to help us identify what time is it. Okay. So again, the first thing we're going to do, step 1, is find the hour hand. Okay, that is our shorthand. So we look at our hour hand and we find what time or what number did it just pass. Well, it just passed the number 3. Okay, it did not pass this number 4, so we're going to go back to the number 3. Okay, so our hour is 3. And remember our tip? Once we figure out the hour, we're going to write it down. So our time is, we know it's going to be 3 something. We don't know the minute yet, but we know the hour is going to be 3. It's very important we write this down so we don't forget it. All right, once we figure out the hour, we need to figure out the minute. So we have to identify the minute hand. Our minute hand is located right here. Remember, that's the large line. And what number is it counting to? So we're going to go back, we're going to start at 1, and we're going to count by 5s. So we have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and 35. Okay, since it just passed the number 7, okay, we know that the 7 is equal to 35. Okay, or since it just passed the 7, we can do 7 times 5, and that equals 35. So our 7 is equal to 35. Once we do that, we then count on from 35 by 1s with the single tick marks. So we would have 36 for that tick mark and 37 for that tick mark. And that is what the minute hand is pointing to. So our minute is 37. So our time is 3:37. All right, ready to try this on your own? I've left some hints in here to help you follow along. So our anchor chart is here to help you, but determine what time is this clock showing. You may need to pause the video so you can write this time down, and then I'll flash the answer on the screen to see if you are correct. So go ahead, pause your video now, and then hit play when you're ready to see the answer. Our answer is 9:13. Let's try another. This time I took away your anchor chart, but I left some other key parts to the clock on there for you to help you out. Go ahead, pause your video, come up with the answer, and then push play when you want to see the answer. Go ahead and pause your video now. All right, one of the things before I reveal the answer here is, did you notice that the hour hand has not quite reached the 7? We know it's past the 6, but has it got to the 7? No. And if it hasn't got to the 7, that means our answer is going to be 6 o'clock for the hour. Okay, so remember, as this minute hand gets closer to the 12, this hour hand gets closer to the next number. We know when the hour hand has reached the next number because our minute hand is going to be exactly on the 12. When our minute hand is exactly on the 12, that's when a new number starts. Okay, so hopefully for this question, your answer was 6:58. All right, hopefully you got that, and we'll try another one. Here I took away the hour hand and the minute hand, so you have to identify those. Go ahead, pause your video, and click play when you want to see the answer. Go ahead and pause it now. All right, hopefully you got this as your answer, 2:24. All right, let's try another one. This one is just a regular clock, no helpful hints. Go ahead and pause your video now. The answer is 8:54. One last one. Here's our new clock. Go ahead and pause your video now. The answer is 4:21. All right, so remember, when we are telling time on an analog clock, our step 1 is, or over here, step 1 is to find the small hand, look at what number it just passed, and whatever number it just passed, that is going to be your hour. Okay, write it down. Do not forget, do not get confused. Okay, write that number down. Step 2 is you find the large minute hand, which is right here. Look at that last number that it passed, okay, and we know that it passed the 4. And then again, there's 2 ways you can do whatever. You can count by 5s starting at the number 1, or you can multiply whatever number it just passed, which is 4, by 5. That will give you 20. Once you have that 20, you find the little tick marks and you count on. Okay, you count on from whatever number it just passed. So from 20, we're counting on from 20, 21, 22, and 23. That will be our minute. And then we write that down. Okay, you have to be careful. You have to take your time, because some of these problems are you're going to have to tell the time on an analog clock, but then some of the problems you're going to have to subtract time from 2 analog clocks. And it doesn't matter how well you can subtract, if you cannot tell the time on each of the analog clocks correctly, you will get the problem wrong. So go ahead, practice on your worksheet, show all of your work, okay, submit it, and look for comments. Good luck.